actual confrontations that were filmed for the movie were like pretty genuine because they were frustrated, they were cold, they were hungry, they were in the woods, they were wet, and they were just like, oh, fuck this. And then and then that's what we see in the film.
And you throw a witch into the mix and you're like, fuck, man.
Come on. Yeah. Yeah.
Look out, something is going to get you tonight. Let's talk about the thing that's going to get you tonight. Welcome to the Happy Harvest Horror Show.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm Corrie.
And I'm Brian. And this is the Happy Harvest Horror Show, where we get together and talk about all things spooky and creepy. And I'm not going to do Addams Family. I'm making a full-on effort to stay away. But that's what we're doing. We're coming in and talking about something scary. We got a fun topic to talk about today, but we're not alone. Today we have a good friend of mine, Kayla Jackman, joining us. Welcome, Kayla!
Hello!
Kayla and I go back to an acting apprenticeship that we did together, where we were forced to stay in a basement and crew shows.
Yeah, speaking of creepy, yeah.
Yeah, we had our own creepy experiences for over Dracula too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was the show.
Spooky Dracula. You guys did Dracula?
I crewed it. We didn't.
I mean, don't tell that to my dreams, though. I still have like flashback dreams of like all of a sudden being forced to be Dracula. Like I'm now thrust on stage without any knowledge of the lines. I've got to like go down into vaults and show up in the middle of like smoke and stuff. Yeah. I was Dracula. I still am in my dreams.
That's amazing. I love that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it'll do stuff to your head being under the stage in dark and smokes and just every night, one night, just being bored and hearing screams. From like the audience, and like there's something to it. I don't know, like a Waiting for Godot for like dungeon workers. But
I also feel like because you guys. We're in Louisville, which I feel like is just a spooky place. Like a lot of ghosts in that town. Like
bluegrass ghosts.
Like something about it had very spooky vibes for sure.
Yeah. So much so that the next year, because Walls was in the year after me. That's how I met. Huh? But
cute.
Her company, I know. Her company's ensemble show was all about Louisville ghosts.
That's right. That is right.
Kayla and I's show was all about bluegrass music and like the identity of Louisville.
Wow, so they go like deep into like we are Louisville. Like
yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
I know there was one production too that the women apprentices assisted with, we crewed on, that talked about like a giant flood that happened in the 1920s in Louisville. And I think at one point, if my memory serves correctly, I think I was cast as a ghost that just walked from one side of the stage to the other while somebody was doing a creepy monologue. And I was like, this is my moment. People are going to see me.
Oh my gosh. That's funny. I miss that time sometimes. I always miss having, even though there's small little things, like when we did Christmas Carol, me and another friend of ours, Colin, we had to carry at the beginning of the show old Marley's coffin across the stage while people are talking, and that was our job, just full dressed up carrying a coffin. Anyway, those are that was a different world, literally, than now. But today we got a spooky fun topic. First, before we get into that, Kayla, how spooky was your week?
Oof. So glad you asked. I didn't have a very spooky week, but I do have a very like subtle spooky experience in New Mexico. When we first got here, I was kind of awoken to the fact that coyotes howl pretty much regularly every night. And so for the first month I was here, I was like, woo, this is fun. Like coyotes, and the dogs get in on it, and you can hear them kind of like trying to howl too. They'll be like, oh, 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 oh. It's like really adorable. So I root them on almost weekly. And last Friday, I was really excited because there's this interactive art experience called Meow Wolf that's in Santa Fe. If you're
Yeah.
not familiar with it, it's like
That
it's
looks
just
cool.
oh, it's my favorite thing. I saw it on Reddit maybe like 3 years ago, and I was like, did somebody just walk into a refrigerator in this video that's like 6 seconds long? They were like, oh yeah, that's Meow Wolf. I was like, whoa, okay, I'm gonna go there. So then I came to New Mexico, experienced it, did certain things from the ground in order to enhance that experience. Um, and really enjoyed myself. So anyway, they opened back up because our state is doing very well with COVID. So I brought my boyfriend there, and we were able to experience like going into different dimensions and portals and stuff. So that's lightweight spooky, more
Yeah.
psychedelic, but very fun.
Yeah. I think it'll count. I'll count it.
Yeah, we'll count it.
Yeah.
We'll count it. I think yeah, the spooky and the trippy psychedelic crossover.
Yeah, it happens sometimes, right?
Oh yeah, it happens often. I
It
think
can happen. Yes.
it can happen.
Brian says with a knowing look. Oh man.
Brian, are you the arbiter of like what counts as spooky? Like
Mm.
I'll
spooky or
allow
not?
it.
Actually, there's this like really
With a gavel.
popular
Scepter.
there's this really popular Twitter account that's like it's like, is it art or something like that? And or it's the art decider. That's the name of it. And people just tag this account in all sorts of stuff. And then every single one of their responses is just art or not art. Like that's it. That's the only thing they
Nope,
respond.
not art.
So like
Do people like tend to agree with this decider, or is it controversial?
kind of
You get
like
mad.
honestly, I feel like they have some weight, to be honest. But what's so fun about it is that like people will tag them in things, just like like just random things. Like it can literally be like internet drama, and they'll be like, is this art?
Ooh,
And
Mhm.
yeah, so it's
I can
fun.
imagine like actual artists like sweating bullets. Like please say it's art.
Like,
You know, a lot riding on this. I just need you to say it's art.
but I feel like Brian, you could start a Twitter that's like the spooky decider, and you
Is
could
it?
just be like,
Oh man, I'd make a lot of
spooky.
people mad. Probably. I'm not brave enough or anonymous enough to,
I mean, the big thing is if you don't have to like back it up with any like
Yeah.
explanations, you're just like, nope,
no,
not spooky.
not it.
Exactly. That's what's so great about the art decider. Yeah, there's no discourse. It's
Right.
just either it is or it isn't, and
Yeah.
you just have to accept that as the
Yeah.
ruling. So
Because he is the art decider.
he is, yeah.
No other.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
man.
That's great.
Well, Corey, how spooky was your week?
I'm going to just be straight with you. It wasn't very spooky. I didn't do
Come on.
well this
Come on.
week. I know. I feel like this is the first time this has happened. I feel like I always have something, but this week, pretty much just prepping for this episode is the best I have. I'm like, I was really trying to dig, and I couldn't. Yeah, I didn't get super spooky this week. I mean, it's kind of rainy and spooky outside right now, so there's that.
Going with the weather.
Weather is spooky. But yeah, other than that, I'm just gonna have to pass. And
Wow.
Brian, how spooky was your week?
Yeah, a lot riding on this. I started a little spooky game on my Switch called Luigi's Mansion 3, where it's just Luigi and he's catching ghosts. And it's like
That's
such
cute.
it's such a tonic, I guess, for what I want. It's like it's very Halloweeny and like children friendly Halloweeny, but like it's scratching an itch, man. It's like in this March in Florida. Like I need some of that.
This is great.
I also watched. What? Go ahead.
Does Luigi have a mansion? I didn't know this.
No, but he's a bona fide ghost hunter. He's got a little vacuum, and in this third installment, it's actually in a big hotel. The franchise is called Luigi's Mansion, but this one's like a big kind of classic, Hollywood Tower of Terror hotel. And he's going around, and a good puzzle mechanic is you can put your consciousness into a goo version of Luigi called Gooigi.
Oh Lord.
And you can solve puzzles with two of them, switching back and forth, and you're catching ghosts, and you whip them around, and
So is this just like a solo project? Like Mario's not into ghosts, so like,
Mario's like taken, like all the ghosts took them all. Peach, Toad, Mario snatched them all up, and Luigi's famously scared, and so this is like
That's
a big
right.
test for him,
Oh, so it's about like facing your fears. I like that.
in
I
a
like that.
mansion full of horrors. Yeah. All your friends are taken. So hats off to Luigi. I went back and watched, I've never seen it before. It just went on Shudder, called The Devils. It's a 70s film set in the Inquisition. About I guess this town. I guess the locations I can't remember specifics, but there is a priest that basically was like the governor of this town, and he was, what's the word, morally ambiguous, had many lovers, all that different stuff. And so the church came for him, and then started torturing nearby I guess nunneries, all these nuns, and especially one disfigured nun who loved him, but found out that he loved another. So, and the result that said that he was in cahoots with the devil, and that he, and when you say that kind of stuff at that time, it's bad for everyone, and yourself included.
I mean, it's still bad this time. There's still a whole percentage of people that are gonna jump on anyone that they think is in cahoots with the devil. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
But it was shocking. I mean, the budget is huge. I'm like, it's like Ben-Hur level of huge. This movie, it was shocking watching, especially if I hadn't seen it. And what made me push play is like, one of the most controversial horror movies ever. And I was like, okay, let's figure this out. And I guess a big case for it is the devils were really the church, and all the torturing and all the it's the hysteria in that.
Ain't that just the way, man?
That's just the way.
That's the way
God or the devil
goes.
never shows up. It's just people doing shitty things,
You were the devil all along.
You were the devils all along. But anyway, it was tough to watch at times, but it's on Shudder, The Devils. And that's, that was my spooky week. And then I had a spooky day, went back and watched 3 movies, which I guess we could reveal what we're talking about today, if you didn't already see the title. We're talking about the Blair Witch Project. And
I love that's such a podcast thing, because I do that here. I do that in my other podcast where we build it up. Like it's this mystery, and it's like the name of they had to see the name of the episode.
I'm gonna throw them for a loop one day. I'm gonna be like, this one's about haunted houses. And then we're like, no, not at all. We're talking about candles. I don't know.
There you go. There it is.
But it's like, I don't know. It's like building up to what? Like if you clicked on this podcast, you know what we're talking about.
But even in my horror movies, I need a hype man. I need someone to build it up,
And what we're talking about today is so exciting. It's so exciting.
Talking about Blair Witch Project.
That's right.
Blair Witch.
Love. But before we get into it, should we do
good.
a quick break for ads, and then we can just go nuts talking about all these movies?
We are going to go nuts. We also need to shout out our people, shout out our crew, the Coven.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have them memorized by now, but just to be safe so I don't miss anybody, we got Julia, Jody, Erica, Wendy, Jennifer, Jody, Morgan, and Aaron.
Boom,
Thank you so much. I appreciate all your help. And if you want to join this coven of supporters, you can go to anchor.fm/HHHS/support and throw as many dollar bills or cents as you need, as you feel like you need to give us. Or not. Or if you just want to leave us a review on iTunes, and I guess, was it called still iTunes? Did they change that?
It's technically Apple Podcasts, but I still say iTunes all the time.
What a world. Or, share us on Instagram, because it's pretty easy with Spotify just to share it in your stories. Or just tell, everybody who will listen.
Mhm.
Tell everyone you can also just listen to episodes you've already heard on a loop. That's really good for for the numbers. There's lots
Back
you
in
can
there.
do. Also,
Get
we're
back in there, Tiger. We need you.
We're on YouTube. This episode will be on YouTube as well. We
Mhm.
started recording via Zoom, so you get to see our faces as well as listen to our voices.
And what
so
spooky shirt Brian is wearing, you could go
Woo!
see it.
you
This
can.
is fun.
I'm not
Yeah,
gonna tell you.
so-
You have to go to YouTube. Check it out.
You can go to YouTube and do the whole YouTube like, comment, smash that subscribe button. You know
Smash that.
how it is. Yeah, so let's take a quick break and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about truly one of my favorite films of all the films, The Blair Witch Project. We've returned. We're back.
We're back. Was that Poltergeist?
Yep, I was just going to say we have to do a Poltergeist episode.
We have to.
Like,
That's a fascinating. Toby Hooper. What a guy.
it's good,
That
good
is-
shit.
Left out of the Oscars in memoriam. Not famously, sadly. Like,
Damn.
dude. And that same year, or sorry, we're on a little Toby Hooper little rant. So, like,
We are.
like this, we are. You are all with me. We're all in this together. Fucking Toby Hooper. And I remember that freaking Oscars, they had like a reel of like why we love movies, and they had shots, like multiple shots of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then for the in memoriam, nothing. I'm like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
had them in the reel.
That's
Anyway,
messed up.
it
That
is
is
messed
messed
up.
up.
So
Don't like
Uh,
that. Mm-mm.
we love you, Toby Hooper, giving us Texas Chainsaw and Poltergeist. And
Good
anyway.
shit.
Which is a movie I've literally never seen.
Which one?
It was Poltergeist. I was so scared of it as a child. Like I remember seeing clips of it, like a kid looking at the hazy movie, and I was like,
yeah.
that's the
it's-
devil.
I mean,
Yeah.
it holds up. It's spooky. It's
Yeah.
spooky
No,
stuff.
it's a scary movie. It's still a scary movie. Yeah, it's classic. Like you have to see it, but also like it's yeah, that is the devil. Like it's pretty
That'll make my week spookier. So thank you for
there we go.
reminding me.
Yay.
in
If
advance.
anyone at home needs spooky homework, go watch
Go
Poltergeist.
watch Poltergeist.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Folded in my notes now.
But today we are talking about not even just specifically one film. We're gonna dive into the whole franchise. I'm personally more excited to just talk about the OG, but I'm also stoked to hear what y'all have to say about
I got thoughts on those sequels. You know, I got thoughts. But let's do
but-
chronological order. Let's start with the first one.
yeah, let's do it. So yeah, classic in my opinion, just film, not even horror film, just film. I think The Blair Witch Project is such an important film in film history for a lot of
Right.
reasons.
Yes.
Well, let's just start there. Blair Witch Project, what does it mean to you?
Woo!
I don't. Okay. Well, where was everybody when they saw it first? Because I actually don't think I remember. I must have seen it like on TV or like a VHS or something. But
Yeah.
where were you two?
I mean, I think it came out in 1999.
Right.
I was 11, 12 years old at the time. I was not allowed to watch it at first when it first came out. So I just remember seeing all of the references, all of the like spoofs on it. And I wanted to watch it so bad that that I ended up watching like the OG bootleg version of it, like bootleg. So my mom had cable. But she didn't have HBO. But if you go to the channel that HBO could have been on if she paid for it, you had like the scrambled TV.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Like,
Yes.
so I truly did watch the entire film scrambled with like
Yes.
neon purples and greens, but I could hear people screaming, and every once in a while you could catch like a still image of people running in the woods. So that's how I first watched it, and then like years later I actually watched it when I was like 14, 15.
That's amazing. That's a great experience. I love that. That because I definitely not with this film, but like we had HBO occasionally when I was a kid, but also didn't have it at other times. So I definitely had those moments where you
Yeah.
would just be trying really hard to watch a movie on the HBO that you didn't have.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I was about like 10 when the movie came out. I remember very vividly when we were all still in the phase leading up to the film, everyone collectively believed it was real.
Yeah.
Like that was
part of the
like
marketing. Yeah.
yeah, and we'll get I have a lot to say about that marketing campaign because talk about fucking genius. But
Right.
Yeah.
we were in a space where like at least I was young. I was a 10-year-old in the Midwest, but in my orbit, everyone thought it was real. Everyone
Yes.
thought this was like this weird mystery found footage situation. And I remember all of that. And I watched it. I didn't see it in theaters, but I watched it pretty much right when it came out. I had very very lax rules on the content I was allowed to consume.
So jealous. Wow. Wow.
So I did. I watched it as a young kid, probably about 10, and was obsessed. Like I immediately. I was like, this is
Right off the bat.
this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Did it make you like want to go out in the woods and find a witch yourself? Like, or did it repel you from the woods? Like,
That is a complicated question because I think both.
wow.
In some ways I like because that's also an interesting thing. There was a whole aftermath of that film.
Yeah.
Like there was like a huge down spike in like the sales of like camping equipment and shit. Like people were afraid to go into the woods because of that movie for like a couple years.
Still afraid.
And-
Camping's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean camping's always spooky. Like just like camping is just a spooky thing. But like,
Exactly.
so I mean, it was definitely terrifying to me, but yeah, I don't know that I've always had that inner like curiosity. So like there was something very compelling about it. And even just so I rewatched it today. I've watched it several times over the years, you know. But I watched it today and I was just like watching it and I was like, dude, I would totally be that bitch that's like, let's go find this cemetery and I'm gonna vlog it and it's gonna be like dope. Like,
Never putting the camera down. People are
Yeah,
yelling at
100%.
you.
I was watching it today and especially like from the space of someone who is now kind of like a content creator, I was just like, I would totally be that bitch right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I would totally be like, you guys, we're gonna get a cemetery. It's gonna be dope. Like this is gonna like we're gonna get so many views. Like this is gonna be sick.
Yeah.
So yeah, even as a kid, it was both. I mean, I was scared. It's not like I was ready to like go out into the woods and find this witch, but there was definitely, you know, an enchantment, a bewitching factor about it. And
Yeah.
that concept has like stuck with me ever since I was a kid. Like the idea of going out into the woods, going to cemeteries. I've always loved going to cemeteries, like making an adventure out of something so folkloric and like
Mhm.
terrifying.
Hmm.
I've always been really excited by that. And I don't know if that, you know, was something that was more like something I had before the movie or if that was something that honestly was informed by this film, because I do believe this film kind of played a big part in who Corrie ended up being in a lot of ways.
Wow.
So it's an important movie to me. I really love this movie. But yeah, it's also just, it's such an interesting, like the way it affected society at large is just a fascinating thing because it was so unlike anything we had seen at that point.
Well, it was like the first viral movie, really, too, right? That
Yeah.
it started a little history about it. It was shown at different film festivals, like test audiences, just kind of testing out what worked, what did it. They had over 20 hours of footage and over 8 months edited that down like a 2.5 hour movie. Not 2.5, it's an hour and a half. It's not even that long.
Yeah.
It's very short.
And part of the marketing campaign was at these festivals, they would hand out flyers for the missing hikers. And they would be like, you know, they didn't show like the whole movie. They'd show like little bits, and they were like, and if you have any information about these people, please contact this number. And even on their IMDb page for the first year after it's released, the actors in their page were noted missing, presumed dead. Like
it is wild how hard they went.
wild.
Like, I'm sorry, but like, fuck Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, fuck anyone else who
Hot
claims
take
to
in
be
here.
like a method actor. Like, fuck you all. Like, like
Wow.
I didn't
And
think
they
we did
used
here, you know, but
and they used the actors' actual names too.
actual
Like,
names. Yep.
it's wild. Like, the process, yeah, they used their real names, which actually is something that since then those actors have been like, that was probably not
I
the
probably
best
wish
call.
they didn't do that, you know.
their parents are like getting like care cards and packages and
Yeah, I'm
stuff.
sorry for your daughter.
Oh,
Yeah. So I have a quote from an interview. There's a couple of really good Vice articles on Blair Witch. There's two of them that I've actually read a couple times. They're really great. I very much recommend them. The first one is the terrifying true story of how the Blair Witch Project was made.
Mhm.
And the second was They Wish I Was Dead, how the Blair Witch Project still haunts its cast.
oof.
Oh.
And both of these articles are actually their interviews with people from the Blair Witch, both the directors and the actors. And there's a quote from Heather Donahue, you know, the main chick from Blair Witch, and
Yep.
and they ask her about that whole thing, and she's like, being dead, how did it affect my career? Adversely.
No one wanted me to still be alive. It took the fun out of it.
Poor girl.
Yeah. So
Adversely.
Sorry, did you ask me a question? How's my career doing? It's terrible.
I'm dead.
I am dead. Yeah. So, I mean, just that element of it alone, like as a film, like we hadn't really seen anything in the mockumentary style like this before, you know? I mean, there'd been like Spinal Tap, but that was like a comedy and it was very
Cannibal Holocaust was essentially found footage too, you know, but it didn't have the same like viral success.
No.
You know,
because it didn't. I mean, ultimately, I think the Blair Witch was the first one to really play into the fact that this is real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so much so that the process of creating the film was just so beautifully DIY, you
Yeah.
know? It was fucking brilliant. Like really brilliant the way they chose to film this movie and like how it went from a concept to like almost all of the dialogue is improv of the entire film. Like there's not
Which I guess we're getting, you know,
Yeah.
the movie itself now that like we've all sadly seen many found footage, you know, horror films that largely try to capture kind of lightning in the bottle that this one did, because this one
Mhm.
feels genuine, you know, that like these aren't actors acting. Like props to all three of these people. And even like the interviews with the townspeople at the beginning, I'm like, these are actual people, you know, it feels like that. That I don't feel at any point they're acting. And it's even, you know, the scariest thing about this movie really as it's happening is they're lost in the woods, you know, and that like that, yeah, there's something else messing with them. And it's also very scary, but largely the ramp up is just, they can't find their way back, and how they like their energies, you know, bounce off each other, and how it gets more desperate. And gets really scary. Like,
Yeah.
And
like the fact that there were so many F words in this movie, I remember like as a kid was the thing that was really that was notable about
a lot. Yeah.
too. Yeah. Which also, like, now that I'm watching it as, you know, a 33-year-old person, I barely even noticed that. But that's also possibly because, you know, the people in my life are constantly swearing. Sorry, Mom. But that was like a huge part of it too, that like made it feel far more natural, and less pre-written.
Totally. Yeah. And part of the and this comes from those like Vice articles, the shooting process, in addition to the dialogue being completely improv, is that so it was an 8-day shoot. The whole film was shot over the course of 8 days. and they created a sense of like they were legitimately camping in the woods. And they also did the vast majority of their own filming. Like it's not like there was really a lot of like film, like the directors were around, but it actually got to the point a few days in where the directors removed themselves as much as possible because they felt like they were getting in the way. So it was more like the directors would give them like the scene and then they'd be like, go off into the woods. And it was kind of designed to push them and get this like genuine response. But where it gets really interesting and borderline unethical,
Right. Let's go there.
is they were very much like, and to be fair, this was something that was stated from the very beginning. Like the directors were like, this is going to be challenging, like this is going to challenge you physically. And that was always very clear. Like there's this one quote from the directors that was like, your safety is our primary concern, but your comfort is not. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously they were very big in making sure no one was ever actually in harm's way, but they basically throughout the course of that 8 days, they gradually pulled back how much food they were giving the
Oh my
actors.
goodness.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Which is one thing I did think about rewatching this too. I was like, they've been lost for more days than they've planned, and they bought
Yes.
marshmallows and maybe beer. So I
Yeah.
was like, what?
Yeah, they flew
What?
through all that.
Yeah, they did, which was not acknowledged in the movie, but I was like very worried about that. So they also just didn't have food.
Yeah,
as
I mean,
actors either.
they weren't starved, but they were
Okay.
just like the amount of food they were given every day was kind of pulled back a
It's
little bit.
more
every
on
day.
edge.
Yeah.
That's so shisty. Wow.
I know. So it was like it went from basically like having a full lunch to like half a lunch to one day maybe skipping lunch, you know,
Ugh.
that kind of a vibe. Which yeah, borderline unethical, but
Yeah.
like but that ended up eliciting real like hangry emotions. You know?
Hangry. Yes. I was picking up on that.
I did get that from that movie. I picked up on that.
So like and yeah, like obviously I don't know, that's something that in a weird way it's also part of the beauty of this film because that's not something anyone could get away with doing now.
Mm-mm.
There's a lot of movies that, you know, you have ethical questions about classic, you know, film directors that like, I think about The Exorcist all the time and all the shit that they went through.
Oh my God, that's right.
That
Oh,
poor little girl, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, just saying that, like, yeah, I'm glad they were in a time now where that's like we have unions and
Yeah.
But
Like, and I will say the reason in this situation I'm a little more like okay is because yeah, one, it's 3 very much grown adults, you
Yeah.
know, and they were from the moment that the call went out, it was very clear like this is challenging. It's going to be in the woods. You're going to be camping. Like if that's not your thing, do not audition. They were
Mhm.
very clear about that.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm a little more comfortable with like adults making grown ass decisions for themselves
True.
and also the fact that they were never actually in any danger. They were not starved. But
Right.
yeah, it's still like a little shady.
Yeah. It's not as bad as many stories I've heard, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
you know, it's still...
But you know, once again, like very real method acting type stuff going on here. And in the sense that like actual confrontations that were filmed for the movie were like pretty genuine. Because they were frustrated, they were cold, they were hungry, they were in the woods, they were wet, and they
Yeah.
were just like, oh, fuck this. And then like, you know, and then that's what we see in the film.
And you throw a witch into the mix and you're like, fuck, man. You
Come
know?
on. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's moments like when I could tell like the frustration of not knowing if you're going the right direction and if you should stop or if you should turn around or just
Yeah.
like wanting to just like stop and get a map to recalibrate, but like she keeps saying, keep walking, and I'm like, I like that
You're making it worse.
that feeling was so palpable in this, and like many times, like towards the beginning I was like, I would have done something differently, but then towards the end I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would have done. I would have sat right there under that tree and started crying, and hopefully there's a cigarette waiting for me. Like I completely empathized with that frustration. It was very well done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that is, a huge part of the beauty of the film is it feels like just a very honest reaction to what it would be like to be lost in the fucking woods. Like, you do your best, like, they don't give up, but at some point they just don't have anything left in them, and it's that like back and forth of like, well, we have to do something, but then there are the moments where they, like there's moments where it's like they're fucking losing themselves, they're losing their minds, but then they kind of pull it back together, and it's like that is what it would be like to be lost in the woods, like, and it's God, it's so good. It's so well done.
And I love how she says, like, we are in America, so like all you have to do is at some point just keep going straight. We'll run into an interstate at some point. So it was like, okay, yeah, I buy that. But when she brought it up the second time, I was like, I don't know, man, this is a big set of woods. It feels like.
One point they're like singing the national anthem in like America the Beautiful, like it doesn't happen here, which is a big commentary, like that's fascinating too. It's now 2 years ago. Thank you, pandemic, for erasing a year. But like 2 years ago at the Salem Horror Fest, Corrie and I saw Blair Witch Project in a theater, like, which
What are we seeing next?
Blair Witch.
Blair Witch Project.
Not the remake.
The project. The original project.
It's going to be fun.
It's the 20th anniversary showing of the Blair Witch Project.
Can't wait.
We're going to get possessed.
Also that it was 2019, which was the 20-year anniversary of Blair Witch Project. We saw it in Salem, and I was so fucking stoked. I remember telling my friends, like, I'm going to see the Blair Witch Project in Salem 20-year anniversary, and I'm going to get fucking haunted. And everyone was like, good luck.
Yeah, it was a double feature with that and Paranormal Activity, which it was great. It was a fantastic double feater because like you could see what borrowed from what, and like because Paranormal Activity in its own right was its own viral hit,
yes, it was.
Came out 10 years later. But what was cool in the theater, seeing it on the big screen too, is I really appreciated like the dread that it builds, and like there's this desperation that they're alone in the woods and they can't find their way back, and then smartly there's like this absolute oppressive dread that's coming in with like the cracking of the trees and the voices, and it's just little things that like they're already on edge, so it's just flying off, like, and by the time we're at 10 minutes left in the movie, that's when you finally get like evidence like someone got hurt, like 10 minutes left in the movie, finally we get that little effigy like
the
parcel
teeth.
with the teeth.
Yes.
And that's like, and they didn't say anything what happened, so the audience is like, you figure it out. And like, I don't whatever I'm gonna come up with is scarier than whatever you were gonna show me.
Exactly.
Totally.
So I really appreciated seeing that in the theater of like, man, this is so tightly paced, that like
not to mention we were staying in a terrifying Airbnb that was like in the backwoods.
It wasn't chill.
No.
It was very scary, and it was in the backwoods of like New England, and like.
Now, did you do that on purpose? You're like, let's ramp it up even more, or you were like,
it was an Airbnb,
Yeah, it was like an affordable Airbnb, and it actually was very nice, but it was also very creepy. Like, it was simultaneously like very spacious, but like also terrifying and kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my gosh!
In October, in Massachusetts. So like,
it
was like It was a whole thing. But yeah, it was also it was very cool watching Blair Witch and Paranormal Activity back to back, because like obviously those films are in the same lineage, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
I don't think, Paranormal Activity would not exist without the Blair Witch Project.
Sure wouldn't.
No.
And so like watching those in succession was a cool experience. Just thinking about it in terms of like, the lineage of an art form, right? The lineage of
Right.
like this found footage horror genre. And it was like really cool to see the vibe of like very mid 90s aesthetic versus early 2000s aesthetic, because while they're very similar movies in certain ways, they're so different too.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I did love about both, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the big bad at the end or throughout is never seen. And I think that's what
No.
scared me so much about both of those. When I saw Paranormal Activity in college, I was terrified. I remember going with my friend, and at the time I was like, you know what? If it's like a ghost, that's cool. But if it is a demon, I am not going to sleep for
That's that Catholic upbringing.
weeks.
You know,
I
that-
know.
The demons
It's
will
always
get ya.
demons, dude. Demons. They'll ruin your
And
day.
then one of my friends knew that I had seen it, so he recreated that moment. I was completely dead asleep in bed. It's nighttime because I'm sleeping, and he runs up the stairs with that pop, 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 padding noise that they do in Paranormal Activity, and slams my door open, and I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night.
I
And
don't
that's
blame
just the potent fear that movie
Damn.
brings out.
Mm.
Something I thought when we watched that double feature is that, Blair Witch Project, they never see, and the audience never sees what's doing it. And that's
Yeah.
scary. Building. Whereas in Paranormal Activity, it's the couple that never sees. You get to see what they don't, because it's always when they're sleeping, when it's what's happening, and which adds a whole nother like, well, shit, well, what's all been happening when I was just walking around the house today, that I didn't see. Like,
What's going on when I'm sleeping?
and what happened when I'm sleeping? Sometimes I wake up and the pillows are weird, and like maybe
It was Sandra Bullock all along.
It's weird. I mean, we laugh, but like that's the kind of shit that like scared me, like
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But any thoughts on the first? We all love it universally. It's good. It's
It's great. It's great.
good time.
I think, hold on, I had one last thing I did want to say about just informationally about that film.
Mhm.
And it has to do with, like you brought up how like, yeah, we don't even really see until like the last 10-15 minutes of the film do things really ramp up in terms like, there's no
Right.
gore or anything until the teeth, and that's
Yeah.
even pretty mild,
Mhm.
and then things really ramp up the last like 10 minutes of the film. But that doesn't take away how scary the rest of the movie is. But the last scene is actually a really interesting thing in terms of how it was directed. And I have just like a little passage from one of the directors that I want to share and how the last scene came to be.
Yeah.
And he goes, my direction for the last scene was, Mike will hear something tonight, and when you hear it, you're going to follow it all the way up until Heather reaches you. And when
No.
Heather reaches you, you want to run all the way down. Now, of course, so this is the actor. Now, of course, I don't know it's a house. They didn't know that. They didn't know the last scene was going on in this house.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the actor's getting this. That was the direction, not having any idea that they were going to run into a house.
Mm-mm.
And so he goes, now, of course, I don't know it's a house, right? So I don't know what all the way up
Yeah.
means. I
Yeah,
don't know what all the
exactly.
way down means. I don't know what I'm going to hear. We had walkie-talkies to radio Ed Sanchez, who is one of the directors. And I said, I don't really understand the last note. And he just said, listen, I promise you, you will understand it when it happens.
Oh my God.
And I said, okay. So I turned the radio off, went to sleep, and then I woke up, and then the sound was Josh's voice on a boombox. So I had to follow Josh's voice, and I see the house, and I realize right in that moment what all the way up means.
Chills, dude. Fucking chills.
Isn't that crazy?
Another thing I want to add to that scene, because I think, yeah, it's once they hear Josh in the tent, I know that one of the recap videos I was watching said that as Heather is running in front of Mike,
Yeah.
she looks over to her left and she starts screaming, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?" Apparently, they had actually created a real witch, and the camera was supposed to pan over to it, and you were going to see it for the first time. But that never. He like was still running and chasing Heather. That he never panned
So much
over.
better.
I
So
know.
much-
Yeah, so much better.
so much better to the lore. We never see her and all that. I love that.
Ugh.
I was also I was reading over. There's the Wikipedia page about the ending here because before Artisan Entertainment bought the film for $1.1 million after its Sundance premiere.
Good for them.
It spooked those audiences, you know.
Yep.
But prior to that, they Artisan wanted to change that film's original ending because people were scared but also very puzzled. They were like, I don't know what to make of that ending. And so they the directors went back to Maryland and shot 4 alternate endings, one of which employed bloody elements. And ultimately they decided to stick with the original because, quote, "What makes us fearful of something that's out of the ordinary, unexplained. The first ending kept the audience off balance. It challenged our real world conventions, and that's what made it really scary."
Mhm.
And that's real. I mean, it ends with she finally finds him. He's facing a wall, and then she falls, and then it ends. You know,
Yeah.
and you're like, "What?" You know.
And I remember being a kid and being like, fucking brilliant. Like I just remember thinking that was so
Standing in the theater.
like, God damn, like that is like
Oh,
truly. Yeah, that ending is incredible. Like and the thing is, that's an interesting thing too, because when it came out, a lot of people were mad. A lot of that there was like a whole chunk of people that like didn't like the ending. I can't
I wonder if I
imagine.
was that person too, like thinking back. But I also can say that I never forgot that ending. It lingered, you know, like I still,
Mhm.
there was no answer. There was no logical, what was that ending? And so because you never get that answer, it never gets resolved in your head. And so you don't ever close the case and you're like, you stick with it, you know?
Yes.
I think what I loved about and still love, but like even loved about it as a kid is like it's mysterious and like there is this element of like, okay, it's the witch, you know, it's the Blair Witch that did this. But you connect back to the earlier when they're doing the research and they talk
Interviews.
about like, yeah, that dude who like killed a bunch of kids and stuff. So there's still a real world connection. So you
Right.
can go the kind of magical, like it's a witch, it's a ghost, whatever, it's the ghost of the witch. But there's also like this potential that it's just this like fucked up psychopath, and like having all of those options, like terrifying, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all. I'm a big fan of the spooky, you know, the paranormal. I love looking at that one.
If you didn't know,
Tell me more.
No. I'm on record. It's a fucking witch, you know. It's a goddamn witch, and I won't be told otherwise.
It's so actually I was like posting stuff on Instagram today, like while watching, and a friend of mine on Instagram responded to this thing I posted, like just clips I posted of Blair Witch, and it was really funny. They were like, "Man, fuck Mike for fucking up that map," and like,
Right?
We all felt that.
Right?
and I was like, truly. And then like we're talking about it, and he's just like, I blame Mike. I fully blame Mike. And I was like, that's a hot take. Like a lot of people would blame the witch, but like I appreciate it. Now, like,
Well, even now that I think about it, in that apology video, that iconic, close-up shot of her, she was saying that Mike doesn't blame me for being at fault, and it is my fault, and I'm apologizing. He gaslit her this whole time. He knew it was his fault. Okay.
and
Yeah, that's a lot of layers.
he felt insecure because he didn't know how to read the map.
Yes, that's
Fucking
right.
kicked the map into the river.
Fucking men, dude. Jesus. God damn it. I know.
Oh.
I know it.
The real message.
So this brings us a few years later to Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows.
Book of Shadows. I don't even fucking know what that means. Like even the title.
Not even the movie.
There's no book.
There's no fucking Book of Shadows in this movie. I don't even think they say book. They don't. They don't show the book. They don't say the word book or shadows.
But there's no shadows. It's all like a bright
Yeah.
room.
So I'm actually very excited to hear what you have to say because I brought this up when we were talking before, but I owned Blair Witch 2 on VHS back in the day. And so like I had it in my possession. I know I've seen it probably a couple times, but I have not seen it since I was probably like a child, like middle school at the latest. So
Yeah.
we're talking like, what year did it even come out? Like what year did that movie even come out?
The movie came out in, we say 2000. So a year.
Okay,
later.
yeah. So
That's
the
right.
next year,
They were like, let's make some money.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I don't remember. I don't remember much from this film. So, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say.
Unfortunately, I just saw it and I now remember all of it.
Well, what I'll say is the things I remember seeing it as a teenager. I remember being incredibly confused and thinking it was my fault. Now looking back, it's the movie's fault. Who thought? But I remember that they went back into the Black Hills forest, and all three of us are from South Dakota. We're very familiar with the Black Hills in South Dakota. So my early teenage brain was like, oh, this one's set in South Dakota.
Oh, it's out in Rapid City. Yeah.
There's woods out there. I haven't been there.
The Black Hills can be spooky. They're beautiful and spooky. Like
But
that would
really,
be a good setting for a witch movie, honestly.
exactly. And it definitely like made me feel like more connected to this movie because I was like, oh, this is happening in my home state. It wasn't. I was clearly confused.
Speaking of, this is a full offshoot, and not to interrupt you, but have you seen Nomadland?
I haven't finished it.
You haven't finished it.
I haven't finished it. I want to say I will not jump in other than like I watched like the first 20 minutes and it made me so sad.
That's the reason why
I wasn't in the mood to
Yeah.
go there that night. So
Yeah, that's fair. It is emotional. I think it's ultimately an uplifting story personally, but half of it takes place in South Dakota.
Doesn't
She's like hanging out in the Black Hills, and I was like, yes, I love this.
I think that's what it was, because it was like I was all these shots of where I grew up and seeing like, like just the shot of like the Amazon warehouse, and that's it. It was like, oh man.
But she ends up basically living, like van life out in the Black Hills for a while. She's like working at fucking Wall Drug at one point, and I was like, yes,
iconic.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So anyone listening who happens to be from like South Dakota, Midwest, Nomadland is really fun for us.
Yeah, we don't get much.
Yeah.
We don't get much. We got Raised Wolves. What is it? Not Raised. Dances with Wolves. Dances
with Wolves. Yes.
right.
Raised by Wolves. That was that HBO Max.
Oh, that was that HBO Max show that I never finished. That's right.
Yeah, because Kevin Costner is also like the godson of the Black Hills. Like he's all over the
South
Black
Dakota's
Hills.
dad.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't hate that. I'll take it. We'll take anything. The other thing that I remembered from Blair Witch 2 was that I believe one of the actors or one of the characters in the movie was a Wiccan. And that was my first time being like, oh, a real Wiccan. I'm going to learn about light witchcraft, cute witchcraft, black lipstick. Like, teach me more. So those
such
are
a vibe. Such a
Right.
vibe at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Exactly.
The main cast was basically a guy that was obsessed with film. We had a goth woman. We had a Wiccan woman. We had and basically people that were infatuated with paranormal, stuff. And so right off the bat, also I forgot to say, the movie starts with a title card, just like the first one, saying this was filmed like in 2014. We recovered this footage that takes place after the events of the movie, and it's a fictional reenactment. It says it right off the bat. There's a fictional reenactment in the world. It's not a sequel, other than like this happens in a world where the movie exists, and that's the sequel. And it has like
the use of the word reenactment is very true crimey too.
Right.
Like that's a weird move.
And also right off the bat sets you like, well, this isn't fun, like, this isn't why I like the first one. But the list of people I just said is largely probably the fan base of the Blair Witch Project, that like it's dark culture, spooky culture that like I think really would have obsessed over this thing that I'm proud part of. And this movie feels like just full on making fun of like the whole culture is what I felt when I was going back and watching it. Because it's these basically fanatic fans of the movie that go on this tour from this tour guide who was a recent a former psychiatric patient and an obsessed fan of the movie. And so he runs this whole business of like doing Blair Witch tours, and he sells Blair Witch merchandise, and he like does all this stuff, and he brings them to this house or to the house in the movie. And they over the course of the night, there's like 5 hours of blackout. Everyone blacked out. No one remembers anything.
Oh my gosh.
And then they wake up and all their footage is trashed.
Yeah.
And they met some other tourists that were also there and obsessed with the movie. And the tourist went up the trail or whatever to Coffin Rock, and they were all murdered that night and spread out. And so that's the setup where we're on this tour and we don't remember anything, and people were killed nearby and people are blaming us and we don't remember anything and blah blah blah. And so they regroup at the former psychiatric patient's, like he lives in this warehouse kind of
I remember that
factory. Yep. Where they just slowly kind of lose their minds, and the witch's pull is driving them nuts. And I think there's something in there that could have worked. It felt like it was filmed as a satire, and later on they were like, actually, let's make it scary. And so the result is like, oof. I mean, like the opening title sequence is like, it says Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows, while Marilyn Manson is playing over the title card.
Of course, it was 2000. How could it not be Marilyn Manson?
Of course, right? And like, so this is where we're going, like
it feels like, I mean, you just named every possible trope, like Wiccan, goth, psychiatric patient,
obsessed
Marilyn
fans.
Manson. Like you're just
psychiatric hospital.
There's an insinuation at the end, like a heavy insinuation that movies do cause violence and they inspire.
Oh my goodness.
People. And like when I had that happen, I'm like, hold on.
That's a weird move. That's a really weird move.
Yeah. So, I mean, spoilers, the movie is also told in flashbacks with each of these people being interrogated by the police. And like, what happened to these people? And they're like, I don't remember. I blacked out. And they go back and forth, and you're getting flashes of like the bloody murder throughout the whole movie. And it all feels all over the place. And at the end, the twist, they killed them out at the Coffin Rock. And that, it was the theme of the movie is that like the movies and reality, the lines are so blurred, and sometimes people just give in. And I'm like,
And what's funny is that in my research, when I was just like listening to people hack this movie apart, they were saying that the director, his original intention was to make it a satire, and it was to be a little lighthearted. And then the editors came in and they were like, no.
It must be
Manson. Yeah.
That's funny that you say that, because I found this. A friend of mine sent me Film School Rejects article saying 28 things we learned from the Book of Shadows to Blair Witch 2.
28.
28 things we learned from the commentary. The commentary on the DVD from the director, because he, bless his heart, went and told us what happened. And turns out, first of all, he did not agree with the title card. Starting off with, quote, fictionalized reenactment of the events that occurred after the release of the Blair Witch Project. This was all a studio decision. The director wanted to make it clear that the first movie was a work of fiction that caused mass hysteria, and that this film is about people caught up in hysteria. And I'm like, that's a movie. That's
interesting. That's definitely, that concept intriguing. I'm
intriguing.
I'm into it.
His original set did not have any gore. All the flashbacks to the police interrogations and the cuts and the murder and all that, the gore, was all 5 weeks before the movie released. The studio put that in. Like full on, put it in there.
What a mess.
Oof. And he says, where's this quote from him? Because it just like,
this director told his family, his mom, he was like, I'm so excited about this vision I've created.
while ago, this director, by the way, he's a well-known documentarian. He
That's
did
right.
most recently, it's Cecil Hotel. He directed that.
That's right. Yeah,
Did
he's big
he
in the
really?
Netflix stuff.
Hold on.
He did. And he
The
also did
Cecil
Book of
Hotel
Shadows too.
dude did
Yeah.
Book of Shadows.
Yeah, sure did. I keep
Is he
saying
like
Wow.
making
Shadows,
murder?
There's never a Book of Shadows. You know,
Okay, but this is that was like a huge piece of information you just threw at me. That makes me feel things. Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's very
So
interesting.
here's the quote from Film School Rejects. As mentioned earlier, Berlinger's original cut didn't have any interrogation scenes or any shots of the massacre until the last 10 minutes of the film, when all that was revealed, and how you view the first half of the film is completely changed. He feels that showing the violence earlier takes away any ambiguity that they were killers or not. And he says, quote, "What do I know? I'm just the director."
Oh,
Okay, but like seriously though, hold on. Like I'm piecing this all together in my mind right now, but like
Yeah.
wanted to create a situation in which he was bringing attention to the concept of like mass hysteria based
Yep.
on the original Blair Witch, which was presenting something false as real.
Yes.
And then he, down the line, 20 years, did Cecil Hotel, which is very much about mass hysteria around something awful that happened and what that led to. Like, that's super interesting to me. So in
Yeah.
the end, I think we have an interesting story here.
this is his story arc.
If it was
Yeah.
satire, this might have been like a classic, of like, oh, this
Yeah.
is a really interesting, brave follow-up. Yeah, this huge, that could have just been a straight to DVD, more Blair Witch, but like, yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm honestly very fascinated by all of that because like the film itself didn't feel like that at all. It felt like something completely separate that was just trying to ride on the coattails of Blair Witch in a very early 2000s horror sense.
Yeah.
And hearing how it was kind of a lot of different visions combined into a bit of a mess. Like
A mess. I was pretty mad watching it. And I think I think it was just the tone, that like if it was satire, I could like, yeah, we're taking the piss out of it, for the word. But he also made this really good quote that he said, "This goes back to one of my core themes of this movie is that we as a society have so blurred the lines between fiction and reality that we're so willing to believe that the Blair Witch Project was a real documentary because we're very lazy in our consumption of media."
Oh my goodness. He
And
said
I'm
that
like-
in 2000?
He said that in the director's commentary of this movie, and I'm like, that's a genius follow-up of this movie. Then, like, I'm trashing on this movie for good reason, but it like
no, his intention. Yeah, I
genuine
agree. Super
idea there.
interesting.
that like because I feel like I'm like, you're making, because when I'm watching this movie, I'm like, you're making fun of the people who like the movie. And I think when it was in the satire, I would see like what he was doing, but this just felt like a scary movie that was punishing us for liking a movie.
Yeah.
And then saying, now you're going to perpetuate it because it
Yeah.
all, it just, the message got really muddled, and I feel bad that happened. But
Well, I'm
I have
really
a new-
glad to know that he's doing well. He's still making documentaries. He's out here letting us know about murderers. This is a redemption arc, and I'm happy for that.
Truly, like I feel like ultimately in a weird roundabout way, he kind of ended up doing what he wanted to do with Blair Witch with Cecil Hotel. Like I feel like there's a really clear connection there. That's very interesting,
Yeah.
So I want to look more into that, dude. That's very fascinating to me.
Yeah, he also did he did a documentary on Bundy, and then he directed the movie Extremely Vile. What was the movie like? It's like a long title.
Shocking, disgusting. extremely
Yeah,
violent,
lots
something
of
like that.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of
had thoughts about
terrible,
that.
awful. Yeah, like a series of adjectives that were very grotesque.
Ooh,
Yeah.
another one.
That's what I got out of Blair Witch too. Just like a cool idea that like, wow, got so messed up.
Yeah.
And that makes you think too about all the movies like that were like cool ideas that got really fucked up. You know what I mean?
I think that
Like,
happens probably all the time.
I agree. I
Mhm.
agree.
And then we got a break for a bit.
We
as
did.
in, like 13 years. And then they came back with
Mhm.
another Adam Wingard directed Blair Witch, which, calling back to the original marketing, this one had a fun marketing too. Because I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember the years leading up to this, that the whole production and marketing as they were filming, and then they actually had a trailer that was going in theaters, was for a movie called The Forest.
That's
I
right.
remember seeing the
Or
trailers.
The Woods?
The Woods. Yeah, you're right. Not The Forest, The Woods. And seeing that, it looked like a kind of a generic, scary woods movie is what, what I remember thinking in the theater. And then hearing it like revealed that like, actually, no, it's Blair Witch. And that was like height of hype that I've had for this movie. It's like suddenly like, this was kind of the craze of Cloverfield. Like suddenly it's a Cloverfield sequel. Like this is like, oh shit, it's a Blair Witch movie. And even all the posters that they sent out to theaters, they purposely left space in the trees for when they changed the title, they would come back and put Blair Witch in there.
Incredible.
It's pretty cool marketing. And then I rewatched this movie again today, and after watching Blair Witch 2, I have a newfound appreciation for this movie.
All right, let's talk about it.
Because I remember seeing it in theaters with you. We saw it in theaters at the AMC 34th Street. And I remember walking out of the theater with you and being like, yeah, kind of a bummer.
Exactly.
But going in and seeing it this time, the first things that I picked up on were, one, it basically tries to redo the first one, just much more heightened. You know, that like we got better tech this time. Now we've got the cameras are all in. Corrie, you watched it, didn't you?
So I'm gonna be real. I didn't finish it. I started watching. I watched it today. I got like 3/4 way through, partially because of time. Yeah. Like I just I need to eat and shit before we recorded. So I didn't
eat and shit
before we recorded. But so it was partially a time thing. I will admit it was also partially because I just and this is a me thing. Like I'm excited to hear what you have to say, Ryan. Honestly. Yeah. I just was watching it and I was like, I just want to be watching the original. Like that was my thing a lot of the time. Like I was like, I'd rather just watch the original again. But yeah, that was something I definitely picked up on super quick. It was like Blair Witch, but high tech. Like that was like the vibe, hardcore.
Yes. Which right off the bat,
drones. We have like little cameras,
that you put in like an earpiece. So which there's an idea in there of like it's all first person,
Yeah. But there were also moments, I agree. There's an idea in there and I'm not going to totally shit on that. There were moments though, where it just felt to me like the camera work was so chaotic. You know what I mean? Because of all these little, we have little cameras everywhere that it didn't feel natural anymore. Cause I was just like, even if you were going into the woods to film a documentary, you wouldn't have 10,000 cameras, you'd have a lot, but you wouldn't have that many. So there were moments in the film where I was like, this is a weird camera angle. This is weird. Like this feels weird. And so it kind of took me out of it a little bit, but
that's fair.
I agree. There's an idea in there for sure.
And I maybe it was played, I don't know, maybe if they had this tech, but the direction and the 8 days in the woods with 20 hours of footage of the first one and all improvised, it could have been cool, that because right off the bat in 5 minutes in, you're like, this is fake. And and that's the first thing you'll catch, especially in a Blair Witch movie, is I don't believe it.
Yes.
Totally.
I think one of the things that you had talked about in one of your earlier episodes was that MTV show. I can't remember what it's called, Scared or Fear or something. And I think what I loved about that is really inherent in the original Blair Witch Project. It's just you give people cameras and then they now just have to walk into scary situations. And agreed on. I've wanted that with Blair Witch, this newer one, especially because of all the new, I would love to see a drone reaction of somebody who's legitimately scared and is not being told by the DP to create that shot.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the main failures of Blair Witch is just that simple thing we talked about earlier. The original, there was no scripted dialogue, right? This movie could have been so much better if the dialogue was improvised, but it was clearly scripted the whole way through,
I'm kind of a mind in this one, which I don't know. It seems like sacrilege after a sequel to Blair Witch, but I feel like not having it found footage would have worked better. I feel like because I think there's scares in this movie and shocking events that are like actually great. I rewatching it today. I'm like, this actually is. It's in a movie that's kind of struggling, but that was a really good moment. I think there's like a the actual, I mean, it's not a killer in the woods. It's a fucking oppressive cosmic horror that's in the woods. And that's the first thing I love about this movie is there is a size to the witch in this, that she is the woods, in this. And so when they're at night, you hear the branches, shattering and stuff. And that's scary. And it's so high up there that you're like, what's up like 20 feet up in the air that's making branches break?
No thanks.
And no thanks. And there's really, oh my gosh, the one part in the movie, late in the movie, when they're in just basically perpetual darkness, because they also play with time in this movie.
Oh, those time loops.
Time loop was, I think, really got me like, that the sun never comes up when it goes down in this place. And and they run back into people that went into the forest with, and they're like, we've been in this forest for 5 days and the sun never came up, and they're like, no, we just saw you this afternoon. And like how it's fucking with people is something I think is cool. It's almost Lovecraftian, and like how everything is like seeping in, but just like the best moment, I forgot about it when I was watching it, and it like shocked me again, and it shocked me in the theaters, is with one woman. She rejoins the group and she's scared, and they wake up and there's all the effigies, the famous Blair Witch stick
classic, man.
It's like, and they're not just little sticks, they're like, there's actually like life-size ones, and it's full on suffocating them. They're all around, and one girl is like, she looks at one of them, and it's her blue hair is part of one, and she's like, it's my hair, this is me. And this other girl, you remember this part?
No, I do not.
Oh man, if you haven't, because I'm selling this because this was fucking cool. And the other member of the party, and she was just not having any more bullshit. She's like, give me that fucking, I don't care about your sticks. And she cracks it in half, the effigy, and the woman just full on, her back breaks and like instant collapses on the ground. And it happens just like that. And it's like, I remember seeing it in theaters, and I forgot, and I saw it here, and I was on my couch like, like,
my gosh,
how the stakes just like skyrocket in little moments like that.
Yeah,
that's great.
I mean, that's like a big horror moment, and like, I think that was part of the complication I felt with this film, because I'm not going to be like, oh, I hated it or anything. There were parts about it that I was enjoying, but I think because Blair Witch means so much to me, and there's kind of a purist element, I just wanted it to be divorced from Blair Witch, honestly. I wanted it to just be its own thing. And then I think I
be the woods. Yeah.
Truly, I think I would have enjoyed it more, because that's a horror moment, and that like makes you feel something, but also it's not in line with the Blair Witch lineage, in my opinion, So it's like, I almost like just want it, like, because there are a lot of good concepts in that film that I think could have just been their own movie, their own horror movie, and really made it work, because, I don't think the Blair Witch needs to have a monopoly on the woods being spooky. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so yeah, I think that was kind of my weird, and I fully the whole time was aware, like, this is me just being like, how I feel about reboots sometimes. Like, we just had this conversation about Jurassic Park. I fucking love the original Jurassic Park with my whole heart. So anything that's happened after Jurassic Park, I'm like, I hate this. Like, it's just like it's a weird purist thing that like, if something's going to be in the lineage of something, I want it to be, I want it to do justice to the lineage. And if it's not, then it should just be its own thing, is my take a lot of the time. So that's kind of like why I reacted to the reboot the way I did. But I also just like wanted to really quickly bring up, both in the reboot and the original, how incredible it is that the Blair Witch horror genre franchise made little stick effigies and piles of rocks terrifying.
Oh god, yes.
So scary.
Oh my gosh, you just brought back to me so many repressed memories of people putting piles of rocks and things in the woods whenever I would go years
Terrifying.
later. I forgot all about that.
and just little like crosses of sticks or piles
Yep.
of rocks, and it's so simple, but it's
Yes.
horrifying.
Horrifying.
It's
It's horrifying.
horrifying.
I got a silly little pin collection because I'm such a dork and I collect things. But like I've got this. I saw this for sale once and I had to get it immediately. It's just the effigy,
So
you know,
good. So good.
and you see
Yeah.
it right away, and I'm like, that's upsetting.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's horror, man.
That's
upsetting. I need it.
Truly though, and I would if you'd be hard pressed to find someone who wouldn't see that and be like, oh god, you know what I
Right.
mean, like
Yeah.
it and I'm like symbols, I'm such a big symbol person, and that is a fucking powerful symbol that
Yes,
was
it is.
created.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
damn, like
And I hear all your critiques about, if you're gonna do it in the same, you have to add something. I feel like, and for me, I thought the execution was not quite there, but I felt like it did add lore to the Blair Witch that made her scarier for me. Whereas the first one, she was very. Me and the Blair Witch, we get all, but adding like. In this, that she was much more powerful than just I can take your teeth out, that she, in this new reboot, she's much bigger than that, because I think we made her that big in the original movie without seeing her.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
That
totally.
So having going back into the woods and meeting her again, and people that are actually looking for her this time, because the main character is if you didn't know, it's the younger brother of Heather going into the woods and looking for
That's
her
right.
sister. So going back, and he's seen the tapes, he knows, and there's a sort of starting point that we've already hit. We have to surpass it if you're a sequel, but anyway, so that's just what I liked. I liked that it was building a universe that I think is very cool, that never tells you what it is, that even this movie, there's even more question marks at the end. But
that's kind of nice. I did want to know, now that you've rewatched it, I remember there's that element of like, if I have a camera on and the camera is looking at the opposite wall behind me, that the witch can't get me. And I think that
You have to
happened
see
like
the
in the
witch.
house
Yeah.
itself. You have to be able to see her
yeah,
and not get killed, or if you
seeing
don't
her
see
is
her.
what gets you. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So she has a little, in the last moments of the movie, she figures out that she can point the camera behind her and look through the little thing to see, but she gets tricked.
Okay.
As the Blair Witch does.
Okay.
I saw one fan theory that you shared, Corey, is that the Blair Witch might be a Wendigo.
Yeah. So I found this website that's like, oh, it's so funny.
Ranker.
Yeah, it's a Ranker website, and 15 fan theories about the Blair Witch Project. And this actually, I think, leads to another part of the conversation that I want to talk about. What it is also just an endlessly fascinating thing about the Blair Witch and what it did as a work of art is there is 100% still people out there who believe that it did actually happen, that this is actually legit found footage, that like there are so many conspiracy theories surrounding the Blair Witch, and there are a lot of people that still think it's some kind of actual found footage that happened for one reason or another. Like there's so many theories, and that just like adds such a dimension to the artwork, that
For
like
sure.
a lot of people still think there's something mysterious or magical about this film that was created, and that's so fascinating. And yeah, this Ranker article, 15 fan theories about there's lots of them. It's like Josh killed Mike and Heather, Mike killed Heather, Mike killed Josh, and it's like they all killed each other. I'm I actually really like this one. Mary Brown is the attention-seeking Blair Witch. You remember Mary Brown that they interviewed?
They did not like her.
And
No, they're making
she
fun of her.
also has big witch vibes. Like,
yeah, she does.
time.
That hair, come on.
She comes off like a witch. Like, so
Wearing a rosary.
yeah, so it's like she might be the fucking witch. Like, I don't know. But yeah, there was one that was like and this goes back to an older episode Brian and I did of Spooky Corner, where that they were a Wendigo. It was a Wendigo that stalked Josh, Heather, and Mike, which is an ancient creature of the woods.
Yes.
So like that's, a fun take. And I think this actually kind of connects to what you were saying, Brian, about the reboot. I totally get what you like about it. And there is something about creating this bigger universe around it that is very interesting. But still, the reboot is kind of zeroing in on it being the witch, right?
Yes.
And the original Blair Witch is still so cryptic. Like I said before, like at the end, you still don't even fucking know if it was a witch. Like it could have been a murderer. They throw around talking about deliverance. Like it could have been people in the woods fucking with them.
Yeah.
And so I like the mystery of like not even actually knowing if it was the witch.
Yeah.
And so
and I think it gets muddy, especially in the reboot of like, what is the witch? Is it even a witch? Is it just this like, we're thinking of like an old crone, in the woods, but like, what if it's something else that I really like, especially, and this is after the movies, but there was a video game of Blair Witch that came out a couple years ago, just called Blair Witch. That I played through and I really liked, and it was about this guy and his dog walking through the woods, and he gets lost, and as he's going through, he's having PTSD, like flashbacks of his time in the war, and the woods is really fucking with him. Like I think like that's the theme of Blair Witch, is like the woods are really fucking with you.
Totally.
Right?
That should be like the subtitle.
Woods are fucking with you.
Woods are fucking with you.
But there's a great, you're going through and you're like, this is pretty, this is kind of scary. There's some freaky stuff happening. But I think what really tied it in that game is you're walking kind of in circles. That's what the woods do. You're never leaving. It keeps you there. And you're going through the same clearing over and over until you get towards the end of the game and it's thunderstorming and there's a flash of lightning. And suddenly right by where you've been the whole game is the house. And it's like right then and there, it's like, whew, I know that house. Dope. In like any person that's seen Blair Witch, it's like, I know that house. That's shit. It got real, and it got fucking real. The house, and they kind of do this in the new movie too, where they go down the stairs and they go through the door and they're right back where they started. That there's like the house even is like an Escher painting of like up right where you start always, just like the woods. And I think that's maybe like the thing, the lore that I'm most interested in the Blair Witch. I think people that are just mice in a maze in this is fascinating to watch. So
I totally agree. And I think that in a lot of ways goes back to, once again, the beauty of the original film and how it actually came together. That story I told, like, they didn't even know there was going to be a fucking house. And then all of a sudden there was a house, and they had actually deal with that in real time.
Yeah.
And that created something that, in my humble opinion, will never be replicated. Like, it's just not something we can do again,
Yeah.
Until Paranormal Activity did it, but like, I'm not saying that it's like, it's good, but I'm saying it scared people in a new way, that like people thought that was real, that like,
totally. And I don't want to like take away from Paranormal Activity, but I can go into an argument of why, like, I don't think Paranormal Activity lived up to Blair Witch, in my opinion.
I think we had that debate.
I think we did. I think we talked about it after we watched our and that's no hate to Paranormal Activity. But I think this is another quote I have that I did want to throw on here, and it's a quote from Heather Donahue herself, which is her
Heather.
real name.
Messed up. I'm sorry, Heather.
I know, I'm so sorry. Like, that's a lot. I hope you're doing well. Like, I hope I hope the best for you. But
out of those woods, I hope.
She's still in the woods.
She needs help, dude. This was years ago. We got to get in there.
But yeah, this is a quote from one of those Vice interviews, and she goes, All those found footage movies now are union movies. Those are actual movies with actual budgets. So it doesn't have the same punk rock ethos that Blair Witch had.
Hell
You
yeah.
couldn't have made Blair Witch with SAG actors. There was no meal penalty or meal breaks. We were shooting
Right.
24/7 without meal breaks, with nobody really directing us. It was definitely feral filmmaking, which you can't do if you have a craft services table and real safety all around you all the
Yeah.
time.
Hell yeah.
That poses a challenge to a lot of current found footage films. You'll just never quite capture the wildness or what the internet was then.
Yeah.
And I agree with that so completely, on multiple levels, because I like that she also brings up the internet, because even the way the promo played out, because it
Yeah.
did play out on the internet. They had a
It did.
website.
Yeah, they did. And the website had millions, like hundreds of millions of views.
Yeah.
Leading up to. Yeah.
Evidence, photos, and
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
played
Yeah.
out on the internet, but it was 1999 internet.
yes.
And if
Yeah, this wasn't like, a viral. It's before viral even happened, you know?
Exactly. So if this occurred now in social media reality, it just wouldn't get that far. Like, people would shut it down. People would figure it out so much
Sleuth
quicker.
it.
They would just, we would cut it down. So it's like, it was an early internet thing that really capitalized on that early internet culture. And then also I love that she brought up like the punk rock ethos, because
Yeah.
DIY and punk rock aesthetic,
Mhm.
it means so much historically. Like, it's part of what I studied in grad school as like my thesis. Like, I talk about like the DIY aesthetic and like the punk rock DIY aesthetic of the 90s. It just means a lot historically and culturally, and it holds a lot of weight as an aesthetic. And it's like such a raw, honest way to create something. And it's so beautifully captured in the Blair Witch Project. And it just can't, that same aesthetic. I'm not saying there isn't a future for something that does something similar, but that aesthetic can't be captured that way again. Like, it just can't in the history of filmmaking, I don't think. And so it's like, there's just something about it that's so like, it was what it was, and we should just honor it for that. And that's also why I get very like, stop making reboots, like, stop it.
And I think we need more. I think we need I hear everything you're saying, and more, please.
For sure. I'm also not someone who's ever going to be like mad that things exist. Like, take your ideas, run with them. Like, sometimes it can lead to really cool things, but I just have such a appreciation for what was created in those 8 days in the woods. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
For sure.
Yeah.
Such a wild, weird thing. And also respect for those actors who didn't end up having a fucking career after that.
I was just going to say, like, in all of this money that's been made and all of the syndications that this movie has gone through, I'm just like, they weren't SAG, like, how protected are they? What kind of residual
or any did they get any? They did. It was a micro budget, you know. I thought they had like,
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Exactly. And like, isn't that the fucking story? Like, so much amazing art throughout all of history is made, and it makes such an effect on the world, but like the actual people making it aren't supported by it, don't actually, and that's, it's fucked up. Like,
I was going to say, and that brings us into like modern day internet and what content can give back to the original artist. Not much.
Right.
It's too bad.
I think about my favorite movies though, and they're usually smaller budget. They're smaller stories. They're smaller. It's very easy to lose something. I don't know, something true when you get huge, like in that way. But
totally. Yeah, there's and it also just speaks to it really, it really was just such an indie film, and like indie films always receive their fair share of hate. So like it also is, it makes sense that like a lot of people are like mad when they were like, I don't get it. Like, what happened? Like, like a lot
Very
of
true.
people were frustrated by the Blair Witch, which is like, okay, like that's
Yeah.
fine. But, um,
I respect it. Yeah. I respect that they stuck to that and then didn't go back into the studio and filmed like some gory thing,
Very true.
Exactly. And that's, not that there are plenty of instances where I think like gore has its place and it can be interesting or fun.
Oh,
or
listen,
whatever.
big fan of it. I'm
Yeah.
just saying for that, know when to play it and when to not, like,
Yeah, but that gore would have totally messed with the integrity of that film, I
For
think.
sure.
So,
whereas if you had no gore in Evil Dead 2, like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Want to see blood everywhere, spurting out of sockets.
I love that movie so much. Oh man. But this is fun. This is a good talk about Blair Witch.
Yeah, it was.
Happy Harvest Horror Show recommends Blair Witch Project.
yeah. Anyone else have any? I feel like I got really emotional in this episode. So like anyone else want to talk for a while? Just like balance shit out.
Nah.
No, I would. One thing I would say is like it's very tangential, not exactly related, but still kind of gave me like the same feeling of what these characters and actors went through in the Blair Witch Project. Is this phenomenon that happened maybe like a year or two ago called randonauts.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, right. And so so like it's like I think a viral thing that happened. I think TikTok definitely picked up on it, but I heard
Really?
about it through Reddit, where you can just enter your desire and your location on a very early prototype website, and they'll tell you where to go to possibly explore something related to your desire, and then you just walk to this dot on a map, and then take a look around. So it can definitely be turned like very insidious, or like thoughtful and sweet. But when I did it a couple times, I mean, in Brooklyn, so like, I was in, alleys.
Yeah.
And
It wasn't in the woods of Burkittsville. It was,
but it was a very like interesting experience for me. I was opening myself up to whatever came, but I was also like a little bit intrigued and worried. And I was able to like kind of document my findings to like the larger Reddit community. So it was a very like interesting kind of tie-in, to kind of what I think these people may have experienced in Blair Witch. I know a lot of people like the reason why it became viral, I think, is because people were formulating something a little bit more horrific in their findings than I wanted to. I think I like searched for the word peace or something stupid. I could have made it real nasty, but
dude, I love this connection. I love the randonauting connection because I didn't think about that at all, but I love that. I only did it once. I went randonauting once, and similarly, I like when I did it when I was like searching for my coordinates, and this was like in the summer. I was like have a spiritual connection, like something very, very nice. Because the thing on TikTok is like people would be like, oh yeah, when I was like doing my random knot coordinates, I was like a death, and then they'd find something terrifying.
Body parts in a bag or something.
And it was like, shit, dude. So like when I did it, I was very much like, it was during the day, because that was also like a thing. It was like, don't go randonauting at night.
At night,
like,
that's right.
Okay. But like it was this summer, and I was in Sioux Falls, pandemic hours, and I was like, I want to have a spiritual connection, something very nice. And it took me to a spot like a decent walk away, And I'm a big walker. I love going on really long walks. But it was pretty cool because my experience was like I was on the bike trail here. And like while I was on the bike trail, I randomly ran into this woman who was just kind of like standing by the river. And she like, I saw her and then she like I smiled and then she like started talking to me and she's like, there's seashells down there. And I was like, whoa. And she's like, I kind of want to go down and get them, but like, would you mind watching me? So like, you know, cause it was kind of like a weird bank. And I was like, sure. So she goes down and gets the shells while I'm just like watching to make sure everything works out. And then she comes up and then she gave me 2 of them. And I
Wow.
was like, dope. And she was like, yeah. And then she just like went on her way.
Yeah.
And then I kept going on my journey. And then it was like, it ended up taking me like down the bike trail and then around a super long way. And then when I got to where the actual point was, it was like directly across from on the river from where I met the woman.
Oh, I love that.
It turned out the woman died 38 years before. She can still be found by that bank handing out seashells.
Actually, hold on.
Actually,
I was hoping you kept the seashells. This makes everything better.
there they are.
Oh my gosh, they're huge.
Yeah.
Wow.
The fucking river in Sioux Falls. Like,
Wow.
Look at that.
No, there's not supposed to be seashells there.
exactly. Like, my point exactly. It was weird. Like, this is not
Wow.
what you find on the river in South Dakota. Like,
But it does definitely look like a South Dakota seashell. It is covered in dirt. It is not clean
Dirty.
water.
Has never seen the
Yeah.
ocean.
No,
But-
it's not.
gonna wrap all of that story back around to like Blair Witch. I
Let's do it.
think
That she was the Blair Witch.
probably.
The end. Have a great
No.
week, everyone.
But I love that you brought up randonauting because I do think a huge element of the Blair Witch folklore story, film, societal conception, it is attached to the journey. It is attached to this idea of like we're journeying off to find something.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes.
Like
that
and,
was my
like,
point.
yeah, and like I like that. I think that's something that always has attracted me about that movie and that like story is like obviously it ends up in a pretty horrifying situation, but there's still something about this like this journey to like find truth in the woods and like there's something
And
very
documenting that.
yes, totally. Yeah, the documentation and the just the journey of it all, I think speaks to something a lot deeper than some horror does, which is why I think it is so high up in my list of favorite films.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
And it still holds up today. And I'm really
It
grateful
does.
for that.
And it's on Netflix right now.
It
Free,
sure
right?
is.
Netflix free. You know.
Get on it. You need to watch that film again because it's so
Again.
good. It's so
Mhm.
Let us know. Let us know your first time. Seeing this movie, or if you had any spooky encounters with the actual Blair Witch, let us know.
good.
If you are listening and are the Blair Witch, please hit us up at happyharvesthorrorshow@gmail.com.
She's got like
for you,
20 like 20-inch long fingers. She's just typing.
typing.
That's such a vibe. Like imagining the Blair Witch trying to like use a computer. It's like
Pushing back her hair. Like
Amen.
wiping off the mud from the computer.
Sorry, hang on. I got teeth everywhere. 1 second.
everywhere.
Such an issue with her.
Also, teeth, fucking weird. Like teeth are easily one of the creepiest bones. Like something about teeth is just really weird.
Yeah, the
Not
back
used enough.
ones.
Not used enough. In the new Halloween, it was used. It was really scary. Do you remember
Yeah.
that? It was like, it was in the trailer too. They were like, Michael comes in the bathroom and there's a woman like in the stall and he just like reaches over and drops teeth on the other side. And you're like,
Horrifying.
fuck, Michael, Jesus.
That is a
God.
surefire way to freak someone out. Just drop teeth.
And he thought he was being nice, you know, just polite.
Like
I
a
got-
raven with a gift.
Oh gosh. Incredible. Well, this was fun. This was a good time. Kayla, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we have more spooky things to talk. Kayla was my spooky horror movie in theaters buddy.
Yes.
So
Brian single-handedly made me fall in love with horror more and more.
I've done it. So yeah, when we have more spooky topics, we'll have you back on.
Thank you very much.
I almost feel like, and I wasn't even, part of this, but I'm like, should we do like a spooky, like Louisville history thing? Like, I feel like there's stuff there that could be really interesting.
I am into that.
Spooky ghost stories.
Yes.
High lonesome spooks. Oh man.
Could be cool. Could be cool.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. And if you're out there, Blair Witch, we love you.
Big fan. Big
fans.
fan.
Fans. And we'll catch y'all next time.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you so much for being here, Kayla. Come on anytime, literally whenever you feel like it.
I shall.
And
I'll haunt you from behind your screen. Okay, I'm done. I'm always here.
Who are you talking to, Corrie? Just been
I'm
us.
just like popping up on the screen.
oh
Oh gosh.
amazing. Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. And we'll catch you next time. Hit us up at happyharvesthorrorshow@gmail.com if you have thoughts or feelings or anything you want to say to us. That'd be cool. And we appreciate you. We're glad you're here. And we'll see you next time for more spooky stuff.
Bye.